We just saw Unbroken, and on this show I take my friends, we go see a movie, we review it in the car, and then we have a discussion. The review part is spoiler-free, so if you're on the fence or trying to find a recommendation, watch that part, don't get spoiled, and find out if this is a movie for you. If you've already seen it, or don't care about spoilers and just want to know everything we think, watch the whole thing, including the discussion, because we'll get into the plot and all that stuff. So, Unbroken is a movie about a POW during World War II. He his plane crashes and he survives for a long time on the ocean with little or no provisions or anything like that, and is eventually picked up by the Japanese and sent to a POW camp. What I just described is at least, I would say at least half of the movie, maybe a third of the movie. The POW camp part of it's maybe a little bit more than half of it. And really, to me, it's a problem how quickly I can summarize this movie. When we get to the discussion part and I can do plot spoilers and all that, I can tell you everything important that happens in this movie in about 30 seconds. In fact, the trailer tells you almost everything important in this movie in about 30 seconds. So, what does it do as far as, you know, did I feel moved by it? Did I feel, you know, did it make me feel patriotic? Did it make me understand the Japanese better? No, none of that stuff. I walked out of this movie knowing about as much as I did walking in. But I was 2 hours plus or older than I was when I walked in. It's very long. It's very beautiful. Like, the cinematography is very good. It looks great all the time. And that kind of can be an issue as well. In that, you know, you have people that are kind of beat up and all of that sort of stuff, but after a while it sort of looks like, you know, everyone has kind of the same wound pattern or the same makeup, and it's either like a beautiful sunny day or occasionally it's raining, but they tend to favor like beautifully sunny days for the shooting, and the juxtaposition of that is just really weird. You also feel like there's only one guy in the entire POW camp, and it's the main character, because everybody else essentially has, you know, with very, very few exceptions, they have no lines, no character development. They never have conversations about what they're doing, what they're up to. You know, there's one guy that has like a couple of lines that talks to him about some stuff about how the war's going, and there's like a guy that's copying maps, and all of that stuff's really nebulous and it doesn't really go anywhere. So yeah, I mean, there are so many good World War II movies. There's so many good World War II documentaries. It's a very well documented war, and it's a shame that this guy didn't actually make it to the end of the year. I don't know if he actually saw a finished cut of the movie or not, but the guy that they made the movie about was a consultant on it, and they show you some things about him at the end. And again, it felt like I would have rather just gone to Wikipedia and read about this guy and like spent 2 minutes, and I know exactly the same amount about this guy as I knew from watching the movie. So sorry, not my thing. I would not recommend it. If you're really, you know, really bored and really just dig the hell out of movies about World War II, or want to see what Angelina Jolie's directing looks like, that would be about the only thing I can think of to see it. So that's what I thought. What was your review?
While I felt the movie was overly long, which of course we'll talk about in a bit, but I enjoyed it. I mean, it was a well shot movie, I thought, and I mean, I have no complaints, I guess I should say, other than that it was overly long. I thought the acting was pretty good for the few people that actually have any acting credits. I thought it was weird that every single person they centered the camera on had like crystal blue eyes. I don't know, that was weird, but
yeah, everybody was beautiful in this movie.
yeah, even emaciated and covered in dirt, everybody was a pretty boy.
Yes,
it was very, very strange and kind of off-putting. Kind of like, what are we watching here? It was meant to be inspirational, but honestly, towards the end of the movie, when you get these really supposed to be feel-good moments, you're like, oh my god, is this still going?
Yeah. It's more like, good, we're closer to the end.
With a couple cuts here, this movie could have been great, but it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great.
Yeah,
it was just kind of there. I wouldn't recommend going and seeing it in the theaters.
Yeah,
Redbox best.
So there you go. If that sounds good to you, check it out. Don't let us, spoil anything, but the guy did consult on the movie, and they show that in the previews and the trailers. It's like he's gonna survive and he's gonna be fine, and that takes a lot of the tension out of it too. So when you get to the POW camp and they're like really not going to show you any new characters, they're really not going to introduce you to anybody else, it's like, okay, we just have to wait for the clock to wind down. And he has this really adversarial relationship with the POW camp leader, who then is the leader of the coal foundry or whatever they're working at the end.
Yeah.
And they reveal it's weird because they make a big deal about how big of a jerk that guy is, and it feels like, okay, they're just giving us a character in the movie
to hate,
to hate, or to center everything around, and that's fine. We can fixate on this one Japanese guy, but then in the epilogue they're like, he was the one guy that wouldn't show his face at the end. He was the one guy that wouldn't reconcile because the guy in real life went to Japan as part of his PTSD and forgiveness, and forgave the Japanese and forgave his captors, and he ran the torch for Japan. All of that stuff's more interesting, by the way, than the stuff they show in the movie. The forgiveness side of it, all of that sort of thing. The epilogue tries to play up the fact that it was him honoring a promise to God that he was it on the raft that he said, it was they're in the storm in the raft.
If you get me through this,
I'll live my life for you, kind of thing. And that scene occurs, and then they don't really bring up or echo that notion again. So when it comes up in the epilogue, it's sort of oh yeah, he went and forgave the Japanese out of obligation to God for getting him through all of it. Okay. I guess there's a connection there. I'm sure he felt like there was a connection there, but the movie just didn't convey to me that was something that he felt. The character at the end of the movie doesn't go, I'll honor my promise, kind of thing. Yeah. The epilogue did that. And the epilogue... So, back to the 30-second thing, it's the plane crashes, they're in the water for a long time, one of the guys dies, they fight sharks, and they get picked up by the Japanese, he gets separated from the other guy, we never see that guy again until the epilogue. It shows that he was okay too. He goes off to the POW camp. They treat him pretty badly at the POW camp.
He refuses to make a deal to talk bad about U.S.
He refuses to talk shit about the U.S. on the radio, even though they offer him a really cush life. And then he ends up back and ends up in a worse prison with the same guard that hates him as bad. And at the end, they do the fake out Schindler's List thing, the scene where
march.
they walk them all into the river, and they're telling them they're gonna let them clean up because it's at the end of the war, New Jay in Japan kind of thing. But they all think that they're just being told this so that they can be shot. And then, like, a single U.S. plane flies over, and they're like, "We won, hooray!" And they start celebrating. And then, like, a minute goes by, and 2 more planes go over, and you're like, "That's how winning World War II was. That's what it was like, huh?"
Yeah.
They're just, like, standing in a river, and all the Japanese guys with their guns are like, "We lost."
No, the best part of that whole scene.
And then epilogue. And then there's, like, the epilogue is, like, most of the information about what happened.
The epilogue was great, and this would have made an amazing documentary that I would watch, like, no questions asked.
For a tenth of the budget and
but
half the time.
The final scene where they walk him into the river, and all of it, like, all the Japanese have their guns on them, like, in angry faces. And then all of a sudden, one of the prisoners sees this flashing light on the bottom of the plane, and he's like, "The war's over, we won." And all the prisoners go crazy, and all of a sudden the Japanese start looking at each other, and they put their guns down. Like, they didn't know.
And I didn't even I didn't even know that it was the light so much as you couldn't tell what country the plane was until it went overhead and you could see the stars, like the blue stars of the American.
True, but then they kind of zoomed in on that light and it was blinking, so I assume Morse code. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, it's like things that should be obvious aren't obvious. It's just.
And then he lifts a railroad tie over his head. It's very inspirational.
Also in the trailer. Everything interesting in this movie happened in the trailer.
If you watch the trailer a couple times, especially like the extended one that they show in theaters with Angelina Jolie talking and the actual guy talking, you've watched the entire movie.
Yeah, and the trailer plus Wikipedia, honestly, you'd have a better idea of what happened.
Yeah. Plus there's a book called Unbroken, so, pick that up too.
Oh, yeah. I bet the book is less boring.
Probably. Probably. Like, it was so long. It was so long.
Yeah. Yeah, and it feels longer because there's no characters once they get to the POW camp.
Yeah. Well, even the part on the raft was overly long, although they did punch a shark.
No, that part was overly long, but you did at least have those 3 guys for a while to, like, bounce things off of. I wouldn't say it's not even necessarily a character thing. It's like dialogue falls away from the movie, and that might have been like a stylistic thing, like they wanted to show how isolated or broken or messed up everybody was. But I didn't need that in my movie. Like, I didn't need that to understand that about.
Well, there were a few things that we didn't need in the movie. Like, there's one scene that I think is just thrown in there for fun.
Shark punching?
Where they catch the shark with his hands. He catches a shark with his bare hands, and then he punches it and stabs it in the head.
They punch a series of things to death. Yeah. They punch a seagull to death. Then they punch a fish to death, and then they punch a fucking shark to death.
He punches a shark after he caught it with his bare hands. They should have made this man president just on that alone.
I mean, yeah, and that's the kind of stuff that, like, yeah, of course you can't have that kind of a scene happen in the POW camp. Otherwise you have Hogan's Heroes. But it front-loaded, like, the interesting bits. It front-loaded the dialogue and the characterization and the, having someone there to say, are we going to make it? Or am I going to die? Or
they wasted almost 20 minutes on them passing that map back and forth, and it has no bearing on the movie.
It went nowhere.
Yeah, it literally, they get caught and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Why did you just show that for like 15, 20
minutes?
I
think the one guy gets beat up or killed or something, but they don't show it.
He gets beat, and then I think they wheel him out later when they're punching him in the face.
Take the makeup off of the main guy and put it on the other guy. Because they always have, like, the same, like, cracked ear and, like...
And he gets beat horribly. Like, horribly. And, I mean, his face is all mangled in the very next shot. He's fine.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't tell you that any time has passed, but the very next shot, he's just sitting there, and he's fine. There's nothing.
Yeah, and as bad as it would be to get punched in the face by, like, 100 guys, what you would look like the next day would be worse.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as far as, like, showing something in a movie, like, he would have looked like death warmed over the next day. Like, a freaking baseball helmet, or baseball glove on his head.
Oh, yeah. It would have been bad.
Well, that is Unbroken. Unedited.
The length almost broke me.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's unedited. Would be a better title. Thanks for watching. If you like the way we do these, please like the video, subscribe. Check out all the written and video reviews over at dalemaxfield.com, and thanks for watching.